My name is Amit, and I'm joined here by Rahul. And thank you all for either tuning in live or watching this recording at your convenience later on. So, hey Rahul, how are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, same,
Excited.
s- same here, Amit. Good to see you.
No worries. Well, let's get straight into it. We're both pretty excited to share some of our findings with you. We spent quite a bit of time putting this together, so we hope there's going to be something for everyone today. So with this in mind, allow me to kind of just run you through exactly what we are going to be talking about today with you. So we've put together a pretty comprehensive report on the latest in equity compensation in different parts of the world. So today we have myself, Amit, I look after the equity management and work with our customers across the board, and Rahul, who leads our consulting practice and helps companies with designing of equity plans, managing valuations, and everything in between. Our report covers global macro trends in different parts of the world, while today's sessions will kind of take an overview of what's happening in North America, Europe, and Asia. But we're going to specifically focus on the regions that are often overlooked and don't have enough benchmarks. So we're going to be talking a lot about Southeast Asia as well as India. To give you an idea about Capita, we work with many companies from early stages to public listed companies. And we try to help them with employee equity ownership at every step of the way. So support many employees of early stage startups and helping them navigate the initial setup. We work with companies all the way through the growth stage, maturity, and ultimate exit and liquidity. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the report. What we've done over the last few months, we've analyzed data of close to 500 companies across the world. The result of it is a 80-page report. We're not going to go through every single page as part of today's session, but Rahul and I will probably talk about some of the key findings. So with that in mind, Rahul, I wanted to kind of start off with a macro overview first, and let's talk about some of the global trends that we're seeing. So first of all, in North America, obviously a birthplace of a lot of equity compensation trends over the last couple of decades. Silicon Valley and broad-based plans, stock options been bread and butter for a lot of the startups for a long period of time. Interestingly, what we're seeing is a bit of a convergence and increasing role that cash, profit incentives, and other structures are starting to play in North American startups. The other key trend, and this is going to be a common thread throughout today's conversation, is the role of performance-based grants. Performance incentives becoming a little bit more common, and more companies are starting to get creative into how they can be embedded into equity compensation plan design and reward structures. When we look at Europe, performance incentives are also commonplace across the board. And given Europe is quite regulated, as we all know, and ESG is becoming more relevant, we're seeing ESG-linked targets in both long-term and short-term incentives, which is an interesting trend to see and follow. Finally, across in Asia, this is the region where has been lagging, the likes of UK, Australia, North America in presence of equity plans, but we're definitely seeing the change there. More and more companies starting to offer equity across all levels of organizations. So broad-based plan coverage is definitely on the rise. The challenge that the companies see on the flip side is the liquidity. There's limited liquidity in some jurisdictions, but it's not true everywhere. So today we're going to talk about what's happening in Southeast Asia and India a little bit more specifically. So to kind of set the scene, the entire journey that we like to think about of every organization starts from the very day one when the company is created, all the way to the listing and beyond. So we would like to think about different journeys and different users. So we wanted to share insights for every persona, every stakeholder that interacts with equity. Founders, when they first start the business, incorporate, create their cap table, raise capital, build the initial team, incentivize them with equity, and always have to prepare the company for audit and compliance and regulatory responsibilities. Finance folks also step in. They're responsible for investor relations, reporting, undergoing the budgeting and forecasting processes, audit reviews. So that's also quite important to consider things from the finance perspective. Let's not forget the human resources and the people teams. You need to design compensation benefit programs, reward structures, think about how the team will grow across borders as well, and support the individuals at every step of the way. And there's many other stakeholders that are involved when you think about expanding, growing your business, and also preparing for the ultimate exit. The way you can think of it, no matter what you do at every step of the way, employees and investors are the key stakeholders they need to consider. So with this in mind, Rahul, I want to bring you in here, and let's kind of talk about the approach that we have on at every single step of the way. So the first thing we want to have a look at, and Rahul, you have a lot of insights here. The first question everyone should ask on day one is, how soon should I create my employee incentive plan? Should I do it immediately? Sure. Should I wait a little bit? What are you seeing?
Sure, Amit. So Amit, before coming to like create an ESOP plan, just want to give a little bit background around what there is in India. Actually, means I will talk more about India geography, where it is like it started with like nice to have a thing in equity or ESOPs, like equity compensation or ESOPs. It has moved more to like a compensation strategy, means, and it is not limited only to like startups or listed companies, or like if I go to IPO then only do it. It is like people are like it is like popular in every stage of the company, and I will say every size and every sector as well. So it is not a sector specific as well, that what we have seen in India. Means it has like some if I go 20 years back, it is like started with few 100,000 companies. Now it has like more than 10,000 companies are doing ESOPs, including listed, private, and mid-sized public unlisted companies. So it has gone in that way. So when to create a plan, so there is not a, means I will not say there is a one answer to this. Actually, it also depends upon what is the objective and at what stage you are. So the first thing is that the people can start it from the first day as well. The people can start it at the later side as well. But what we have seen in the market, means what the people are doing, the people are starting it between 2 to 4 years, which is also coming out in our survey, which is more like when your idea is more concrete, when you know that where you are growing, when you know that who are the key employees in your organization, people are moving towards, and that is where the companies are coming out to create or implement an option award plan or a liquid, or they plan to put equity as a long-term incentive plan. So that what we have come up, and that this approach is like reflecting in our surveys as well, that the people are looking for that if they know that, okay, this is my strength, this is my employee size, now where I'm heading, and maybe securing a fund as well or investment as well, the people are going towards the ESOP plan. So that is what we have seen, and I think it is a very similar in Southeast Asia. But yes, you can put your thoughts there. But I feel this side of the world, in Asia side, people are more looking that once they are concrete about the things, they are going ahead with the early implementation of the equity plan.
Yeah, no, makes sense. That's exactly kind of I think what many people expect. Usually creation of the plan is linked to your kind of first external fundraise, when you bring in kind of institutional investors, early VCs. So when we crunch the data, it's 72% of the companies have a plan, but by the time they get to Series A. So if you're early stage startup, when you look at the timing, pre-seed, seed, that's when it usually happens. By Series A, you probably definitely want to have that in place, and that's what the data tells us. But the next thing, Rahul, is that, okay, so we've decided when to create a plan. The next natural question is, okay, well, how much should we set aside? So how much should that employee pool be? All right, and obviously the data is a little bit different in different parts of the world. So what are you seeing there?
Yeah. So Amit, here, I mean, if we see the pool size in Southeast Asia, what is also coming out in our report, this year's report, actually, that this is mixed. Actually, it's the initial pool size but if you see a range, it is between 8 to 12% actually, which is something is a good point to start off. Even and what we have seen, like the people that start with the larger pools earlier in their growth path, and with the time, as the time grows, the pool size may be in a percentage terms coming down, but the value is much higher actually. So it works in that way. But and even what we have seen, the investors are also putting like that you should keep aside the sufficient number which is like a good for your runway, that it will help you in hiring plan for a longer period of time, and it should not be like that I just look after. Second thing, what we have seen, and if you see in these companies like series A, series B, and even pre-seed, they need keep employees actually, where sometimes they are ready to give away around 1% or 2. I mean, the people are, because they are the key growth holders actually, which can grow the company to the next level. So you need that much pool, and this range is absolutely means like within that part, that you need 8 to 12 to 15% of the pool to set aside to start with the implementation plan. And yes, over a period, it I means when you go for a listing, or you go for the thing, the pool size, maybe the numbers are more, but the percentage pool size maybe 2-3% actually. So that is
Yeah.
something what we have seen. Yeah, you can add, I mean, yeah, you look after the Southeast Asia, you can add your thoughts here.
Yeah. No, correct. Yeah. So that's the trend kind of we're seeing. And actually, interestingly, so we were looking on the screen at the moment at the trend in India. The pool sides, have started to increase significantly. That's the trend we've seen in Southeast Asia as well. So when we did this analysis a couple of years ago, you would normally look at 8% pool size. Now, like it's breaching 10% as well. So when you look at the global benchmarks in Australia, US, your 10, 15, that tends to be the norm. So we're seeing kind of convergence in Asia to kind of get those standards. And the other things to consider, as you rightly pointed out, is dilution considerations. So when you create your pool, it's not going to stay at 10% forever. If you raise more capital, not just the founders, it's like at the pool size gets diluted as well. So the right time to start thinking about top-ups based on the data we're seeing is that when companies kind of get to this Series B stage as well. That's when we see a lot of companies look to top up the pool, because they need to hire maybe a lot more senior folks as well. But yeah, similar trend in India. So anything else you want to add from the India perspective, Rahul?
No, so only one thing I just want to add here, what we have seen from 2022 and 25, and what you correctly pointed out, that the pool size from 8%, it has increased to more than 10%. What we have seen, and many companies are moving towards more than 10% pool, because it is not only that it's a what I will repeat myself, it's not too nice to have. It is like now it's a part of the total compensation from very early stage of the companies. That's why the companies wants to keep little bit larger pool, so that in future, if they want to hire someone, it should not be like it is a showstopper for them. And even nowadays, investors are also put, or the private equities and VC funds also put, to keep aside a good amount of pools to keep running and keep hiring the right people, and give them the right compensation as well. So that's why we have seen, and this is the major, means if you see in this graph, like 55%, which is between the range of 6 to 10%, has means now moved to the last, which is like more than 10% actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's definitely a clear trend there as well.
Yeah.
So I have a next question for you as well. So we know when to create a plan, and we know how much to put aside. The next logical question is, okay, well, so who should get equity? So how are you thinking about eligibility? What are you seeing from the data there, Rahul?
Yeah, so here I will put in a two way. One is like a regulatory side, and it's a good to have, and you can give to everyone in the organization who have the employee, or they're giving a service to the organization. But looking at the trend, and the current is like most in Southeast Asia, what we have seen, and it is a similar trend you will see in the next slides actually, that the broader based plan is a trend which is like more people, which is like covering only key employees, which is like less than 10% of the companies, are moving to the other buckets. That, and what we have seen in Southeast Asia, that now the trend is moving from 10% to more than 20 up to 20%, and even lower down the size. So this is a broader coverage. and we can see it is like a part of the remuneration as well, where the people are also even the employees are also asking for equity, because they know that this is the life changing thing and the wealth creation for them as well. And
Yeah.
from the company side, the companies are also looked at, okay, who are the key employees, until what level I can grow and bring the overall objective of the company to everybody's actually. So this is also one of the things where you can um, means put everyone on the ownership path and
Mhm.
take it. That is something is a more philosophical, but even the trend size is also looking that it is moving towards the
Yeah.
product plans as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
but Amit,
Correct.
your views, because you are already looking into the Southeast Asia side, so your views here.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so we have a very similar trend when we look at both of these charts as well. In Southeast Asia, used to be quite top-heavy senior executives. It's becoming more democratic. That's exactly the same trend we're seeing in India and listed space as well. More and more companies giving equity to across all levels of organization. So that's definitely becoming a little bit more broad-based for sure. But it's a little bit different in the listed context. You know, in the listed context, equity plays a bigger role as executive compensation. We'll talk about performance incentive a little on. But even then, when we look at listed companies in India, there's still increasing trend of increasing coverage compared to the last time we published this report as well. So there's definitely consistent trend that across the board, more and more employees getting equity as well. It's a little bit different in early stages versus late stages, but it's just something a lot of companies should keep in mind. Now,
Yes,
also
yes.
the next question is that, so recap so far. We know when to create. You should probably do it once you start raising capital, definitely before Series A. You know how much to put aside, so looking at 10% is probably a good starting point as well. And now we want to give it to potentially more people, definitely senior executives and management. But now, what instrument should you get? There's different ways to create your plan. There's options, there's RSUs, there's cash. How do what are you seeing there?
So Amit, I mean, what we have seen the trend and the people are also looking for is like options are the most popular instruments, and it is not only in means I will say Southeast Asia. The similar trend you will see in India as well. That the options are the like most popular instruments, which is more like the people are more looking forward, like give it at means like free of cost, or maybe that is something the people can
Yeah.
decide. But it is always easy to explain. That's why people are more moving towards that options thing. The second, when you implement a plan, when you decide instrument, you need to see the other things as well, that okay, what is the regulations, what is the accounting implications of these
Yeah.
instruments, and how you are going to value it, how you are going to pay out to the employees. So all these things need to keep in mind, because all
Yeah.
these factors like give a motivation to the employees, as well as it can, if it is a very it can have a double impact on the company as well. Like just giving an example, like if you're just going with a cash settled plan and you are at a
Mhm.
growth trajectory, the accounting cost will be much higher, because you need to like put a cost on the on your FMV, which is like, suppose you are growing by 2 times 3 times in a year, and maybe you are raising a fund, it will
Yeah.
be like a huge accounting cost in your books of accounts over a period of time. Whereas in equity, you can there will be a huge difference there in the accounting cost if you follow the if you are settling it in equity. So these are some of the things people keep in mind, and
Yeah.
looking at those things, actually the popularity of ESOPs and RSUs, or you will say the equity based plans, are more
Yeah.
popular in this in Southeast Asia and India.
Yep.
And so what we have seen. But yeah, looking, I mean, yeah, I want to know your thoughts as well there, because you have
Yeah.
already seen these things in the market, and you also know that how the other geographies work, like US, and also you can give a comparison to us.
Yeah, no, for sure. So look, a lot of it is driven by regulatory environment. So what's actually allowed? You have to consider securities law, you need to consider tax. The beauty in a lot of jurisdictions in Asia, specifically in India and Singapore, is that options provide great degree of flexibility. We'll take a bit of a tour around the world in a little bit and touch on some countries. But that's definitely the trend we're seeing as well. And Rahul, like, I actually want to pick up something, and that's good timing. You brought up account implications. It's a good call out because you also need to consider that when you design a plan, when you set it up as well, is what's going to be implications on your ultimately P&L. So there's accounting standards you have to follow. You're going to have audit requirements as a company as well. Designing equity versus cash will have different accounting treatment as well, different relation, but ultimately expense will need to be likely recognized over the vesting period as well. So now, like, I want to move on to a little bit more tactical. So we discussed some of the high-level things in terms of plan creation. Let's talk about actual allocating equity to employees as well. So the first thing we want to talk about is trends in terms of grants. How frequently should you grant, and what the vesting design and schedule should be. So this is what kind of our data is saying. So I'll kind of start off with Southeast Asia, and then you can provide insights in India, which are actually not too different. So what we're seeing, a lot of companies kind of looking to grant equity on an annual basis, sometimes quarterly. The simple answer there is early stage companies usually give equity whenever people join. As you become as you grow and mature, you usually link equity to your performance review cycles. So if you have an annual performance review at the end of the result, then maybe additional grant you receive. Maybe people get promoted, so they receive more equity. Maybe they've performed and they receive another grant as well. So that's definitely a trend we're seeing in Southeast Asia. And Rahul, over in India, both listed and unlisted companies, that seems to be the trend as well.
Yes, Amit. So yeah, and what you pointed out is absolutely right, that the people are more looking for the annual grants, and definitely means they generally link it to their performance cycles. Generally, they link it to their promotion cycles and so on. So that's how people are more looking towards the annual grants. And yeah, and the more important thing is it will help in the administrative things as well.
Yeah,
that you because you need to do, and you can put light on this thing, that you need to do 409A if you are giving it to US employees. If you are you need to do in India, if it is an unlisted company, you need to do the FMV for calculating the accounting cost and all. So yeah, so you can put more light on this, that why people are looking for
there's many reasons, but look, as a rule of thumb, the more employee friendly you make equity, the higher the cost to the company. And that cost can be in the form of accounting costs, so your P&L hit, could be an administrative burden, could be compliance, things you have to manage. So example, from accounting perspective, if you have 12 grants a year, you need to obtain fair values for those 12 different grant dates, which obviously will, put a little bit more pressure on your finance team and, make maybe a little bit more complexity to your audit. Similar kind of thing, let's talk about the vestings as well. So the more grant dates, the more potential compliance admin burden and operational considerations. The design and the vesting schedules will also have impact around this. So in Southeast Asia, we see more companies kind of follow your traditional kind of 3 to 5 year overall vesting schedules. And they kind of tend to have annual vesting, usually after the initial cliff. It's important to know that the cliff is not a requirement in every jurisdiction. So now, Rahul, if you're an Indian company, it's mandatory. You can't avoid having that 12-month cliff. In Southeast Asia, you can actually avoid it. So some companies do annually, half-yearly. We see quarterly sometimes as well. But the general kind of rule of thumb is annual vesting seems to be the trend. Some companies, especially early stages, make it more friendly, make it monthly vesting. But the trade-off as well, if you have monthly vesting, if you follow IFRS, you effectively have to value each tranche individually. So there's your expensing is a little bit more messy. But those are the trade-offs, you have to consider. Now, in India, I think the trend is, pretty clear that annual vesting is the way to go. And that's not too dissimilar, and even becomes more of a obvious choice when you're a listed company, because you want to provide a bit more rigor and structure there as well. So that's what we're seeing on the vesting schedule side, and I think that's been consistent with what you've observed as well. But I want to bring you in here, Rahul. Like, one of the things I mentioned at the start is performance conditions, right? This is the trend we're seeing globally, is that more and more companies starting to introduce performance conditions. So would you mind kind of running us through some of the data findings that we have on this topic?
Sure. So Southeast Asia, still the people are more looking for time based. So they first eligibility, they see the eligibility, they evaluate the performance and maybe grant. So that's why it is a more like a time-based thing, where once I have granted, you should be with the organization, looking for more for the retention and ownership in the organizations, what we have seen. But if you see the India trends, actually the India trends are moving more towards the US side, actually, which is more the people are started more performance based thing. So if you see, the graph has increased to 18%, and if you go to listed company, it will increase more. So that is something is what we have seen, that the people are more looking towards the performance things, and which is like a usual, like if you are a listed company, people are more looking to give you more performance thing rather than just retaining the employees. When you are at an unlisted company at a different stages, you need a different objectives maybe you have. But what we have seen, and this is a change, Amit, we have seen from our last survey, that the people are more moving towards the performance grants, and even the performance is not only the individual performance. The people are more looking to put the corporate performance in things, so that everybody should think in a similar direction, a similar goal, or I can say it's a similar objective, that to grow to the next level. The one thing, I mean, just want to add it here, what we have seen in India, especially in the listed companies, and which is very similar to what scorecard proxies has in US, actually, that the more performance condition. So if you are planning to give some discounts to employees, or maybe you're planning to give a RSU grants to employees, the proxies are more looking for that it should be performance driven. It should not be like a unquote it is like a free, not a free money. It is more like that it should be performance driven, how the shareholders are going to increase the means how it is going to impact the shareholders wealth. So that is something the proxies are also looking. So that's why you see that now the highest percentage in the performance, it means the vesting condition is a performance based grants in India. And looking at that, this trend is going to increase in future as well, that more and more companies are heading towards the performance grants. And if you ask me as a consultant, or in this space for so long, actually, that ultimately it is more like that, how you are giving to shareholders, that you will also create the wealth. So it should be like a same boat, all are in the same boat. So that is something is required, that it will be more like a performance driven thing.
No, so that's exactly right. So the global trends are pretty clear when we look at the data. Other regions, performance-based, especially for later stage companies, is a bit of a must. If we go back here, when you look at Southeast Asia, which is a little bit more heavy on early stage startups, it makes sense that only 9% of the companies actually do performance incentives. Our general recommendation early on is keep it simple, right? So what normally happens if you're like a seed stage startup, you want to give someone performance-based grants, chances are your company might pivot 3 months later, and those initial performance targets are no longer relevant. So it's not fair to punish those individuals receiving those grants for not being able to meet them, because they're no longer important. So what we're kind of seeing a lot is that as companies progress to a bit more mature context, you're starting to include performance conditions like individual performance, right? Or revenue targets, which are a bit more objectives. And then you're starting to get a little bit more creative as it become pre-IPO and listed companies. That's when your valuation-based metrics, relative TSR is obviously super common in the listed space as well. So that's something to consider. But the answer depends for every company. You just want to consider what's important to you, kind of go from there. So Rahul, so the next one I want to talk a little bit about with you is exercise prices. And what might be surprising to our audience in North America is that in Southeast Asia, almost 95% of the companies give options at either nil cost or nominal, which just doesn't make any sense, because obviously in US there's a foreign aid requirements. The beauty in Southeast Asia, so in countries like Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, you have a lot more flexibility, and companies here take full advantage of it. So almost all companies use some sort of a discount as well. The discount can vary, but nil or nominal value exercise price options are super common. So in India, Rahul, the trend is similar, but it's a little bit more mixed. Do you want running us through some of the data findings you have for startups and listed companies in India?
Yeah. So Amit, yeah. So if you see, so as you already pointed out that in a early stage you make it more flexible, it is better for the company. That's why I think that Southeast Asia is more towards the nominal value, where maybe they want to evaluate what is the FMV and just don't want to link it to the employees, because in 3 months if we pivot the things, it will be a different FMV for the employees. But in India, it is more like a mix of startup and a little bit matured companies. So the trend is more or less not very different. The people are still between the nominal value and the market price, actually. So where they are, even if they call it as a market price, if they know that the value is little lower, or maybe they are going ahead with some big jump in the future, so people are going with that part. But you see in a listed companies, people are more looking towards the nil value grant. So this is very much going, if you see, hand in hand with a performance condition. So if you see here, the companies who are going with a nil value or nominal value of exercise price are also putting the performance conditions there, because that is go in hand to each other. And what we have seen is this trend is increasing every year, that the people are more looking towards that. And I think you can put light on the global trends, but I think the global trends are also in the US also the similar, that the RSUs are more popular, but it is a performance driven thing. And the very, very similar in listed company in India, where you see that the 41% companies in our survey has said that they are doing the nil or nominal value, actually, while granting options to employees.
Makes sense. Yeah, like as a general rule, early on, options, are the way to go. Later on, because we need to consider pool size, dilution as well. So RSUs and PSUs with performance-based conditions definitely more prevalent in late as well. But the ultimate goal of our whole of doing all of this is obviously for employees can actually get benefit and payouts. So some of the trends we're kind of seeing is that liquidity is still a bit of a challenge, especially in Southeast Asia. So when we looked at the company, only 1 in 4 have achieved liquidity in one shape or form. And this could be the actual exit. This could be designated like liquidity programs. So for example, as part of the fundraise, some of the proceeds are being used to cash settle, for example, options for the employees as well. So the trend is increasing, but we're still quite not there yet in Southeast Asia. In India, however, there's definitely a lot more liquidity. So India was number 1 globally in terms of IPOs last year, which is amazing. There's a lot of liquidity programs, what they're kind of usually referred to in US as standard offers. In India, we kind of call them ESOP buybacks. So a lot of companies have actually been able to achieve it, even before listing, which is really great to see. So we're definitely seeing kind of a lot of more liquidity in India as opposed to Southeast Asia for now, but we're slowly getting there. So Rahul, what I wanted to kind of spend a little bit of time on as we're kind of looking to shortly wrap up this session, and look, the whole report is like 80 pages. So as promised, we're going to cover everything. But we thought it's important not to just look at some of the data points, but also look at some qualitative commentary that we've also included in the report. So I want to start off with it kind of around the world, and we've picked a few jurisdictions for today's discussion. So some of the things that people need to keep in mind. So in Singapore, as we've kind of alluded to, things are pretty flexible. Equity is quite friendly. Options at nil cost or discount are quite popular. Taxation is pretty straightforward. The only quirk and things that people need to keep in mind is the index size rule for foreigners. So if you have expats working in Singaporean company, based on sort of the tax sourcing rules, the index size rule is something you need to keep in mind. In the US, obviously equity is commonplace as well, but the most important requirement that people need to keep in mind about is Section 409A. So unlike Singapore, where 95% of the companies give discounted options, not something you can do when you have employees in the US. So that's just something important to keep in mind. In Australia, they have startup concessions for startups they can take advantage of to defer tax input into the sale. Loan-funded share plans is another alternative as well that can be used in some cases, but you need to be mindful about ESS reporting. So Rahul, what about India? What are some of the things you're kind of seeing in both startup and the listed company space?
Sure, sure. I mean, so India means like there are like some complexities related to regulations as well as FEMA, because still it is little bit like there are rules, there are some administrative forms need to be filed, and the important part in the India, if you're giving to Indian employees and from maybe Singapore, US, from anywhere, you need a merchant banking valuation, which is like a, like that. Okay, at what price you are giving to employees, at what price they are exercising. So these are some of the things which are very much required. There are some FEMA forms you need to be very careful about when you are giving it to India, or maybe from India if you are giving to outside India. It is like you need to submit some of the forms to regulators, because it's still it is little bit regulatory around the same. It is not so free flow of I will say the funds from India to outside or outside from India. It is still like regulated by FEMA exchange. So that is something we need to take care. Then ESOPs like text as a perquisite. So it is like a whenever you are exercising, you need to pay perquisite, and whenever you are selling your equity holdings, then it goes to capital gain. So the regulators has divided this into two parts. Like one part is your salary, and the second part is the capital gain. So that is something you need to keep in mind, because in many jurisdiction outside India, if you are if Amit has already touched upon, if it is a ISO plan and all, you have a different taxation thing. But in India, it's a very clear that whenever you are exercising whatever plan you have, you need to pay tax as a salary, which has a little bit higher rate, and then the capital gain actually. Then still India means, yeah, it is growing, and you can see that 54% companies had come for liquidity and 46% are still, but still it is growing. But yes, that is something like if we are a very early stage or thing, there is a limited liquidity, buyback remain the main exit actually. So that is something is we need to take care. We need to see that how we are settling, because there are different rules in India for buyback. So we need to be very careful about that, how you are putting it, how you are transferring the fund. Coming to listed companies, first thing is accounting, very very important, that and which you need to follow India's, which is very similar to IFRS 2. So you need to do fair valuation, you need to amortize it as per the graded vesting and so on. So very careful. The initial years maybe a little bit higher accounting cost may come up. Then gains similar to what unlisted companies, grain treated to as a perquisite, and some things we need to disclose in the SEBI disclosures as well when employees are exercising. So we need to disclose it in our report, and and other things. And the important point just want to add here, that the SEBI regulations we need to follow if you are a listed company in India. And first important thing is the minimum cliff vesting is required actually as per SEBI. So that is very very important, which is applicable to all Indian listed companies. Yeah. So this is a overall, and as Amit said, we are not able to cover everything in the 30 minutes, but we tried to put it as much as we can put here.
Yeah, there's quite a lot to keep in mind. That's why you have a job, helping companies navigate that as well, right? But like, I guess the important message is that depends where your employees are, different rules apply. So it's very important to keep in mind, right? And then so India is obviously quite structured and clear, and we've kind of alluded to in many countries in Asia, things are quite friendly and flexible, but it's also not the case in some jurisdictions, right? So I also wanted to kind of provide examples of countries where things can be a little bit tricky. So a lot of companies looking for talent in different jurisdictions, and unfortunately, China, if you're a foreign unlisted private company as well, is that equity compensation is pretty much impossible. Because you're not going to be able to obtain registration with China Safe as well. So that's something you'll have to go through with as a listed company in future. So, cash settled defender plans becomes an alternative. In Vietnam, State Bank of Vietnam also has strict requirements due to exchange controls as well. So that's something also pretty tricky for, foreign companies with employees in Vietnam to navigate. Philippines is another example in this part of the world where SEC exemption is required, and that compliance makes things a little bit tricky. So as a result, when we looked at the data, most companies prefer options, RSUs, equity settled awards. But unfortunately, it's not something you can roll out globally blindly. There'll be some jurisdictions when you do the homework. And once again, in the report, we touch on a lot more jurisdictions. I think we kind of gave example of 7 as part of today's sessions, but there's definitely a lot more homework you have to do depending where your employees are. So Rahul, to kind of wrap up the session, I think when we've done all the work, we've written a bit of content on the analysis, but what will be kind of your summary and some key recommendations for companies to keep in mind?
First thing is, and I mean, it's a performance thing, which is a clear trend which has been come out, and not only in India, it is like Southeast Asia as well. That the time based is still higher, but the performance is increasing little by. So that is something. It is a performance incentive where you need to see that, okay, how the performance can be attached to this. So this is very important, which is a key recommendations or even key takeaways as well from our survey, what we have seen. Then I mean, and you need to plan globally. Very important that in the early stage also you need to see that your ESOP plan should be scalable, and it will comply with the local laws as well. So that is something is very important, that if nowadays there is a global employees, global people are moving from one place to another. So your plan should be, or wherever you are making your plan, should be globally complied. Actually, that is very important. Liquidity means, like, it is a motivational thing. We can't just keep the liquidity in bay for a longer period of time. So that is very important, that you should have a liquidity planning. It is not only that, okay, whenever there is an IPO we will do it. You need to plan something, the exit as well. So these things should be in the plan, so that it help companies actually, or it motivate employees as well. So that is a key takeaways from our end. And broader participation, that is something has come out very clearly in our survey report 2025, that the companies are now increasing the trend from the senior executives to middle management, as well as the broader participation, and not only in listed space, it is in unlisted space and as well. So that is something what we have seen, that it is, and even in the Southeast Asia, if you see, the people are moving toward covering 20 to 30% of the employees. So it is a broader participation there. So this is some of the key takeaways we have. Amit, you can add from.
That's right. So look, I think you've summarized it pretty well. There's definitely a lot of things to consider for companies as they set up their plan initially, as they rethink their compensation and reward strategy, as they grow and mature, expand across jurisdictions. There's definitely a lot to consider, but hopefully resources like this report that has insights from many companies at different stages, many jurisdictions, are helpful, and then can help you navigate your own journey as well. So if you'd like to get a copy, please reach out to us as well. We'll be more than happy to share that with you. And if you have any questions, you can just leave a comment on LinkedIn. You can reach out to Rahul and I. We're, as we can tell, we've been speaking for 40 minutes. We can talk about this for hours as well. And today's presentation is just a glimpse of what we've analyzed, the data that we have. So we'd love to chat with you as well. But for now, we just wanted to say thank you for tuning in and checking out this session, the preview of the key findings from our latest report. Rahul, thank you very much for your time and joining me here today.
Thanks, Amit. And it's a pleasure always talking to you. Yeah.
No worries. We're best friends, and let's keep it that way. But
yes.
Thanks, I appreciate your time, and have a great one. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you.